Hello, it's Trisha, and there's David. We went on another hike again today over here at the trails, the wildlife management trails, and I went out to a new area that I've just started finding over the last few days, and I am loving it out there. David's loving it out there. He's running around and just having the time of his life, huh, David? So I posted a video while I was walking around out there, and I talked about a couple ghost stories from my life, and I will post that video in a little while. But at the end of my video, I talk about that I'm going to share a story about these three spirits that I saw in this other house that I lived in the Los Gatos Mountains of California. And then I think I've already told that story back in like 2019 or something like that. So I thought today, like right now, instead, while I'm driving out, I would tell this story about when I was at my boyfriend's house when I was in high school, and when out of the blue this spirit started making her presence known. And so I want to tell that story. Okay, so this was, let me fix this. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this was are you listening, David? It was in 1985 or 1986, somewhere in there. And I stayed at my boyfriend's house a lot. And so we were over there this one day, hanging out at the house. His mom was somewhere, not at the house. We had the house to ourselves. And we were watching TV. And so we were in the family room watching TV. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, the blender turns on. Like, it was like crazy. It was insane. Like, what the heck? It was so weird. And as far as I know, it's not like they had used the blender recently. It was obviously plugged in. So the blender turns on. And you know, the blender has those buttons that you have to push, right? Boink, boink, boink to get the blender to turn on. So I remember us staring across, like that part of the house was like you could look through the family room, past the kitchen table, into the kitchen. And so he starts walking over there like slowly. And then I think I got up and started walking with him. And he goes over and he like tentatively like pushes the button to have the blender turn off. And we're just like, what the heck? And so at that time, as far as I know, in my life, it wasn't talked about as much as it is now. Like everywhere you go, it's like, which it's kind of neat to see that more and more people are talking about ghosts and spirits and all of the things, UFOs, the Sasquatch people, the afterlife, all that stuff is now way more talked about. The paranormal, all that. I don't know if that's where we went with what happened with the blender turning on. I can't remember that. It's possible though, because I had already been interested in like the afterlife, and I had already had some experiences in my life before that. And that's one of the stories I talk about in my other video is the first time I saw an apparition, a spirit man. I saw a spirit man when I was in visiting my great aunt and uncle's house when I was about 8 in Illinois. And so that happened. And then this was the time of when waterbeds were in. So he had a waterbed, I had a waterbed. So I stayed at his house a lot. I would just say I was at my mom's. I would say I was at my friend's house. And I would tell my parents I was at my friend's house and I would stay at his house. Okay, so this one night or morning, I can't remember, but I was in his bed and he was somewhere else in the house. And all of a sudden, I felt a presence walk into the room. And I could tell in my mind's eye the height of the person, and it was sort of like a tall, slender, not like freakishly tall, but just like maybe, let's say 5'8", 5'9" height, and a slender build, but I couldn't see anything. I just had that sort of that inner sense, and I could tell where they were standing in the room. And the person just stood there for a second, or maybe a couple seconds, and then either that they just dissipated from that spot, or then they walked back out of the room. So that happened, and that was, I don't know, within some days of the blender situation. So then I think that the next time I went over there, he told me that his bed started leaking. So we ended up then going to sleep in the next room down, which was his sister's old room. And it was sort of like in the corner of the house. There was a long hallway, and if you kept walking, you would hit into the bathroom door. And then if you were standing at the bathroom door, if you made a left, that was the door to his sister's bedroom. And then if you would have made a right, that would take you down the hallway to his mom's bedroom. So we went to sleep we started sleeping in his sister's bedroom. And this one night, or whatever it was, I was in there, and all of a sudden the door just swung open. I was like, what the heck? So I'm thinking, was there like, a cross breeze in the house or something that would make the air shift and pull the door open like that? Is there like, maybe the door isn't on the door jam isn't correct with the door or something? I was trying to make sense of it, but there was also this, like, it kind of makes you feel like a vibe, or like it stands out when it's something not that, like that, when it's a paranormal something, it kind of stands out a little bit. So that happened. Okay, so at this time, this could have been in 87. That boyfriend at that time, he started getting involved in like hardcore, like more harder core experimenting with certain drugs, okay, and hanging out with not great people. And so I was mad at him for something. Like, I was really, really mad at him. And I remember, like, we had been laying in bed, getting ready for bed or something, and he made me so mad that I decided I was gonna go sleep in the room that is in the middle of the hallway between the bedrooms and the kitchen and family room area. There was this kind of living room that that no one ever went in. It was sort of like that room that some people have where it's just sort of like the grown-ups room, where when there'd be visitors, maybe they'd go sit in there or something. We never went in there. We were, for whatever reason, just never hung out in there. But for some reason, this night, when I was so mad, I decided to go lay on the couch that was in that living room. And I think all the furniture were white. And so I'm laying on this couch, and that couch was, when I was laying down on the couch, my back was to the hallway. And so all of a sudden, like right after I lay down, I hear someone run down the hallway and coming from that bedroom and stop right behind me. And I thought it was him. So I quickly kind of sat up to turn around and get mad at him. And there's nothing there. Like, it's empty, like invisibleness, like just the hallway. And I was like, oh my God, it freaked me out. I got up and I sprinted back to the bedroom and jumped in the bed. And I did at that time say, oh my God, I think there was just a ghost out there. And then I explained what happened. And I just decided to get over it. Whatever I was mad at him about, because that was a trip. So, and I've spent years studying about ghosts and spirits and the different dimensions and realms, and just really have taken the time to get really into understanding it all. And I don't have all the answers, that's for sure. I mean, I guess, infinite intelligence is available to everybody. I've really taken the time to learn about these different types of subjects, and because I've had all these experiences in my life. And so there is the thought that when especially female adolescence age, that there's something about the emotions of who you are at that time and what you're going through, what you're dealing with, it can activate spirits activity. And it's possible that that's why that spirit came out of the woodwork all of a sudden. But yeah, so anyways, that was very interesting. And then years later, so this was in like 1986, 87, I think, I had this sort of overwhelming urge to get a hold of that boyfriend out of, and that came to me in like 2014. And I had, gotten away from him in high school because he was going down the wrong road that I didn't want anything to do with. And so I didn't want anything to do with him anymore. And then over the years, I found out some things about him, that he just was not, he was not a good guy, and he did some things, and, blah, 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 and, this and that and whatever. But there was still something that made me feel like that I wanted to get a hold of him and talk to him and sort of for some reason help him while he was dying. He was dying. And so I ended up, through these different turn of events, through first getting a hold of his mom, and then we didn't really talk on the phone, but we would email each other and like message each other and stuff like that. And so I was able to find out that he was living in Idaho, and that he was in the hospital. And then I was able to put it together and figure out which hospital he was in, and randomly, out of the blue, call his the room that he's in, the hospital room that he was in, and talk to him. And I immediately recognized his voice. He immediately recognized my voice. I was with him for like 2.5 years in high school. And I just felt like I wanted to give him some happy memories to think about before he died. I think I keep forgetting to talk about the fact that I have mediumship abilities, and it is, yes, to be able to connect to spirits and to be able to pass messages along, but it also, there's a mediumship side to it. There's a like intuitive side to it. There's a being able to connect with other very high dimensional beings like angels, archangels, ascended masters, spirit guides, the helping spirits. And I will feel compelled to talk to somebody and share some information or give some information, and I just feel compelled, like in my like solar plex area or something. I don't, and so I felt that that's what I was doing right at this time. And so I was like, do you remember the time? So let's see, I think he was like 3 years older than me. So in 2014, I was 44, 45, depending. Yeah, I think it was 45, because I think it was in the later year, like in the months, like more in the fall, after I turned 45 when we were talking on the phone. So he was like 48, 49, something like that, somewhere in there. And so I was like, we were talking, and I said, do you remember the time that there was that ghost in your house? Remember when the blender turned on? And like we talked about that and had some laughs, and we just talked about memories. And then I said, do you remember when we saw the UFO? And I talk about that. I have another YouTube video that I talk about that. And then more recently, I was on a podcast where I tell that story. It was I saw UFO. We both saw the UFO while we were in his El Camino, and that was in 1986. So he started crying, because he was. I think that because of the fact that he had, he was an alcoholic. Did a lot of drinking over the years, and he did drugs, and so his mind, and he was, he dealt with a lot of stuff in his childhood and his growing up, that hurt him, like his, emotionally hurt him from some of his parents' divorce and his own mental health stuff, that he didn't know that he had imagined some of these things, these memories. So I was doing sort of, I feel like a good deed, even though he had done some really not good, not nice things to me when at that time in the high school years. So we had a great talk, and then we said bye, and then he died a few months later. So. And then after I talked to him, I felt what usually happens is that when I feel compelled to talk to somebody or call somebody or share some information, and then when I do it, it's like this sort of relief, or this, okay, I did my part, I said it, and then that feeling kind of stops, like, okay, I did my part. So yeah, so that's I wonder, you wonder who was that. I feel like it was a female. It felt like a female presence, whoever that was that walked into the room and that was maybe doing that different stuff. But I don't know. It felt like more of a female presence, or maybe it was I don't know. Like I can only guess at that time. But anyways, so thanks for listening. More to come. Tell me what you think. Do you guys have your stories you want to share? Totally want to hear it. Thanks for tuning in and following along with my journey through life. Okay,